Hello? Hope I'm coming in loud and clear. Just about to get started. Right, so I've made some changes to how I'm going to approach Twitch streaming. Come on. Okay. Where I'm going to try to narrate what I'm doing while I'm doing it, so that anyone who drops in to watch the stream can hopefully get something out of it, learn something about clip or about drawing. And it would also be a way for me to slow down while I draw, which is something that, you know, I really need to practice doing. Furthermore, I can hopefully share like keyboard shortcuts and stuff, as well as getting better at talking on stream. Yeah, that's the goal for this year. That's my aspiration for the new year. You know, even though January is pretty much 2/3 done, I finally figured out my New Year's resolutions. So there's that. There's that. Yeah, so on screen, you see that I have a scribble, a storyboard, if you will, of 2 characters from my web novel. Context isn't important. I was doing my social media post this morning, and do I need this? I don't want that. Why is that even there? Let's move you over to the navigator. There we go. I like keeping my workspace as neat and tidy with all the important bits ready to use within like arm's reach and easy to see. Yeah, this is gonna be awkward because I realize so much of my workflow, so much of my process is automatic at this point, because I've been doing this for over 10 years. Yeah, well over 10 years of working on, you know, Photoshop Elements, Corel Draw, Autodesk Sketchbook, Photoshop CS6, which is as far as I got because that was the last time Adobe had an actual product instead of a subscription. I still have CS6, my legal copy of CS6. And now Clip Studio Paint, which is my primary tool. It's a tool that a lot of comic artists use. Specifically because it has a ton of tools that make making comics much easier. Also great for illustrations. Tons of tools, tons of like stamps and brushes and all that fun stuff. So anyway, I want to make a quick sort of black and white drawing to put on Blue Sky to basically share characters from my web novel that I'm writing on Tapas. So yeah, diving straight into it, there's something of a composition I want to do here, but it's not very well balanced at the moment because I made this sketch super quickly. So first we're gonna hold down M, or actually M, if you just tap it in Clip, will take you to the marquee tool. It's very good if you have a keyboard in front of you for quick shortcuts. Now when you select something, you can hold down Control sometimes, but if you're already on the marquee tool, you can't hold down Control and move like this layer. Probably because I have select. Let me try something. Okay, yay, because I have addition selected over here on the lasso tool. I have add to selection instead of new selection because of the way that I use the lasso tool. So instead of holding down Control to move this bit of the layer around, we're going to hold down K, because K is what I bound my move layer tool to. And I'm going to scoot him this way a little bit. Control D to deselect what you have marqueed. And then we're going to move this character. Hold down K. Control T to transform. And he seems smaller than the one underneath. So I work on a display tablet, and it allows me to kind of hold up my fingers to the screen and measure the size of their heads so that I know that they're similar. Click OK, let it load, hold down K to move it a little bit. I captured Anand's hair down here a little bit. That's fine, because we're just scribbling. Mostly wanted to scoot them around because I wanted more space for, if you hold down E, that's the eraser tool, I wanted more space for the text. Maybe move this guy. So hold down M, select with the lasso tool. M doesn't automatically go to the lasso. It just goes to whatever sub-tool has been selected off of the main tool. But actually, rather than have them here and here, if I put them on the opposite side, that might be more interesting. Hold down M, hold down K, scoot them that way. Ah, that's nice. That way they're kind of like opposite each other, and I can make the hair more flowy. Now, the default keybinds for a lot of the tools I've moved around in Clip. If you ever want to change the key binding of your keyboard shortcuts and just like the single keystrokes that can that can change your tool around, what you do is you go, oh no, back here. Go to File, Modifier Key Settings. Nope, not that. Incorrect. Shortcut Settings. And then you'll get the shortcut settings menu here, right? So every single thing that you can find as a tool in Clip can be reset or sort of like mapped on your keyboard. So this is currently under a category of menu commands. You can also go to Tools, and you'll see that my pencil here is on the it's on the yen sign. So you can edit shortcut, it'll turn this into a box, and then you can keybind it with like a different key. But if that's already in use, it's going to warn you down here that bracket's already in use for brush size. So we can't do that. I guess, so this is technically, it's the backslash key, because I wanted my pencil to be different from pen. If two tools are on the same letter, then it's going to toggle back and forth between those two things. So for instance, frame border, I have set to A. So I have create frame and cut frame, both set to A, which means every time I hit A, I will toggle back and forth between those two tools. And I did that because every time I create frames in Clip, almost immediately after creating the outside frame, I just cut to create all of my panels. Super useful. So that's like one example of a way where you can set up your keybinds, your keystrokes. Tapping. I'll find the word. Anyway, that's one way you can set up your keyboard to, you know, make work more efficient. And then the more often you use your keyboard, the more you will memorize your keystrokes. So that's the most important thing. Because the seconds that you shave off using these sort of like keybinds and stuff will add to hours and hours of time by the end of the year, you know? It may not feel like you're going faster using your keyboard, but you are. It saves seconds. And that's sort of like efficiency without sacrificing effort, you know? If anything, it makes things easier if you learn all your keyboard shortcuts. And if you can't learn them all, then you make up your own. I have created brand new keyboard shortcuts using Control, Alt, and Shift all at once, along with a letter, for tools that I use often, or for like filters or blurs that I use often. Anything that you notice yourself using a lot, like all the damn time, make a keyboard shortcut for it. You can do that in Clip. And again, you go into File, Shortcut Settings, which also has a keyboard shortcut. It's Control, Shift, Alt, K, which I don't know if that's default or something I made. But yeah, useful. Very, very useful. Anyway, backslash is what my pencil is set to. And that's why I'm glad that you can like hear my keyboard. Also, if you hold down Shift and you like tap one point on the canvas, it'll create a straight line. It's not the same as Photoshop, where if you hold down Shift, it'll bind to like the horizontal and vertical lines. So that is a difference between Clip and Photoshop if you're used to Photoshop. If you want to do something like that, you'll have to use like a ruler, where I use like the symmetrical ruler and perspective ruler, and I've mapped ruler to Q. So yeah, I wanted to split. Control R toggles my ruler so that I can keep track of where I am on the screen. So let's see. Just gonna map out where I want the text to be. Control Z. Also, Control Shift Z will redo stuff. Very useful. Probably stuff that like most people know, but just in case for those that don't, you can't. Full stop. They're in quotes because it's a line of dialogue that Venkata, this guy on top, said. Alright, so that's a much more interesting composition than what we started out with, where they're both kind of centered and the text was kind of small. Now we have a sort of like confrontational setup, and yet, you know, the dude at the bottom is smiling, which adds, I think, another level of contrast. So here's another one of the things that I do to help make life easier when I draw, is right here in the corner, you have a change layer color button. You can also use Control B, which turns on the effect. So you can change it either with Control B to toggle. You can hit this button right here, which is change color layer on your layer window. And if you go down here to layer properties and effects and you hit the third button here, it is the identical tool. And it also says layer color. You can change the layer color down here, as well as in the drop-down menu on this side. So there are multiple ways to set this up. Now that I'm talking about it, I should probably be using Control B rather than trying to click this corner here at the edge of my tablet in this small little icon that I've made. Because I think I set the text to be super small so that all of my side panels get smaller and I have more room to work in the center. I should be using Control B. We're going to do that from now on. So anyway, Control B, we're going to lower the opacity till it's barely visible. And now I'm going to make a sketch. And so the sketch, I use the design pencil because as I get lighter, its opacity goes down even though the opacity is 100%. You can hit delete to erase everything that's on your current layer. Another thing, name your layers. I have rename layer set to a keybind of Control-Alt-X. It'll pop up this dialog here for change layer name. We're going to name this sketch. So not only do I name my layers, I color code them based on like if something is not done yet or something's in progress, and then green if the layer is done, purple if that layer is done and it's not supposed to be visible. That's my personal setup, so that layer management gets easier to do. That way, you know, if you have a billion layers on your art piece, at a glance you know exactly what's on it. Because you notice I keep my thumbnails very small because I'm trying to maximize the amount of information I can glance and look at quickly. So colors help with that. Colors, you'll notice that when we go to work on my webcomic, well, not my webcomic, we're working on My Gentle Giant where I'm the head artist. When we work on it, you'll see that I have a lot of layers to work with and each one of them has a specific job. But here, for now, we're just going to make a sketch. So the bracket tools can increase and decrease the size of your brush. Alternatively, if you're working on tablet, there's normally a slider. I don't use my slider simply because I have to move my hand all the way to the side of the drawing tablet, so more often than not, I kind of just, I tap the bracket until I reach the pen size that I want. Delete that. Be careful while deleting stuff if you've got like other things on your layer that you want to keep. So, oh yeah, also if you move your canvas off to the side or something and you want to reset it, Control-0 fits it to the center of your screen. Control-Alt-0 brings it to 100%. What else? When I want to zoom in and stuff, I have multiple like levels of zooming in. The default is usually like 25, 33, 50, 66, 75, and 100. But I added intervals in there. Where did I do that? Preferences? Interface? No. Performance? No. Cursor, canvas, canvas. Yeah. So if you go into preferences, canvas, you can add, delete, or change the scale of your zooming in. And what I did is I kept all the defaults, but I also added intervals of 10 so that I could easily sort of like tap in and out of zoom. It was just too big of a jump for me, and so I reset that in preferences. A lot of work is setting up the right workspace in order to do good work. Additionally, since we're going to start drawing here, I'm going to go to Window, Canvas, New Window. It creates a new window for this. Control-Shift. I should probably change the keybind on this because Control-Q quits out of the whole thing, but Control-Shift-Q mirrors it. It flips over the view. It doesn't actually transform the canvas. So now anything I do on this side will show up on that side. I'm going to put this view print size. I'm going to close this because I'm going to use the design pencil tool. I don't need to worry about that. I'm going to close this because I'm already on the right color and the right layer. Oops. View print size. So, yeah. So I've got the size of the brush that I want. The reason I have a separate window flipped over is to help with anatomy and mistakes, because my sketch layer is the construction stage. The line work is where the drawing happens, but sketch is where we kind of go from the sort of like under sketch or underpainting of the drawing and turn it into something I can then draw on top of and make more interesting. So what I want to try to do, what I'm trying to do more often, right, which is why this is going to be like almost invisible so it doesn't get in my way, I want to practice making more dynamic poses for my characters, and that normally takes a two-step process of making the initial sketch or initial storyboard, and then the sketch on top of that tries to push that pose to be a little bit more exaggerated. So we're gonna see how that works. Yeah. So I want him to face down a little bit more. There's the divot for his cheek, chin, jaw, ear. So this point of the ear matches up with the corner of the eye. It's gonna be over there. This point is the point that I use at the center. We got a nose. Base of the nose normally goes to the lobe of the ear. The ear comes up. He actually has slightly pointed, so trying not to Control Z. Trying not to add any extra details, right? So you've got the Adam's apple, which is the center, and then you have the two big muscles over here on the side that come together at the collarbones, shoulder. This is kind of the seam, but that whole area is the deltoid. These are actually back muscles. Those are your trapezius. Yeah, and then every so often glance over at the other window to make sure that like the anatomy looks right. Something I learned while in college for art, for traditional stuff, my professor is like, keep a mirror on you. That way you hold the mirror up on the side and you see your drawing reflected. And when it's flipped over, you can kind of see the mistakes when they happen. Alright, over on Twitch, ads are going to start soon, and when they do, I'm going to try to notice them and not talk, because I don't want anyone on the Twitch side to miss out. Also, like restarting the stream. So I tap there, hold down Shift, make that line. Every time I restart streaming more often, it takes a while to warm up and try to get viewers again. Oh no, I started drawing mindlessly. I'm trying not to hatch anymore. Whenever you do like this sort of thing to fill in a place, that's called hatching. It's something I do when I sketch, but let's see. Base of the nose, base of the... Yeah, so about the base of the nose is also the base of the skull. And at this angle, you can see the back of his skull. Ish. So, skull, brow, cheekbone, chin. Alright, so you notice that, let me open this. Right, going from sketch to like the pose. Right, you notice I didn't draw any of his hair or really much of his expression because I want to save that for the line work stage. I want to save a lot of the fun stuff to draw when we're actually doing our clean lines. I find that whenever you feel like you're just kind of like redrawing your own work when you're doing line work, it's because your sketch is too clean. Your sketch already looks like the finished work, and that's why it feels almost tedious to do line work, right? So now, yeah, because he's looking down, this one is looking more up. Right, so we're lifting his chin, bringing him up here. There's the center of the nose. The bottom of the nose creates this kind of like kite shape. Eyes curve down, right? Brow. Let's see, ear also down. And the chin gets raised up. Hold down E for eraser. Makes things quick. Ooh. Ah, ads are running. I caught it on time this time. So I'm pretty sure no one's here. And that's probably for the best. Because if no one's watching, that means I get to practice this alone. Very, very helpful for me if I feel like no one's watching, because then this really does feel like practice. I can only work till 4 today, though, because I got an appointment. Got stuff to do. Which means it's 12:45 now. Or 3 hours and 15 minutes. 23 seconds left. And we're back. Righto, so I'm gonna finish setting up this. Now when the head is lifted, we see less of the top of the head. This head is still turned, so we can see some of back. Also, this like really thick muscle that comes around to the center of your neck, it starts just under the ear. So that muscle right here, that loops around. And then in the center, you have your Adam's apple. There's your trapezius. There's actually like a little hollow between your collarbone and your trapezius. You'll feel that there's like a little gap of crisscrossing muscles here just under your skin. Alright. So kinda lifted him up. It looks stiffer at the sketch stage when I draw. But don't worry, the line work will fix everything. Hold on. collarbone, chest, shoulder. There we go. Hold down E. Clean this up, mostly so I can see what I'm doing. Yeah, just like there's a hollow here, there's like a triangle of shape between your pecs and your deltoids, where they meet, like right here. So just referencing different planes. Different planes on the body makes it easier. Alright, and then I make a new layer. I'm gonna hold down Control-Alt-X, which is what I set up for renaming the layer. I'm gonna call this text. I tapped P to get to my pins. I'm gonna go for my favorite Angular SFX brush, which I renamed off of these like special effects brush I downloaded for free off of Studio Clips. Here, material or assets, an easy way to get into Clip Studio, not Clip Studio Paint, as well as open the asset store, where a lot of like the fun brushes and stuff that I use come from there. So you notice I've downloaded a lot of stuff. Anytime like I need something specialized, it's always good to peek in the asset store to see if they have it, to then make your workflow easier, you know? Or sometimes you download something and you use it and you're like, I don't use this at all, or this is not very useful to me, but at least you've like tried, you know? Anyway, we're going to make this nice and easy. The same. Kind of like we're capitalizing the first letter, lowercasing the others, even though they're all in all caps. When I'm trying to write text, I like using brushes that don't taper at the end. It makes for more interesting shapes, even though sometimes the way that I like hold down my brush makes it taper anyway. I have to make it very consistent pressure. So if you hold down Control and you're on the brush tool, you can just move the layer around, but you have to actually select the pixels that are on the layer. It won't work if you just try to move it around. Just as a shortcut, you can also hold down K, and then that changes to the Move Layer tool. But if you want to move around things really quickly, you can hold down Control, and it'll select the thing. It's kind of like the Object tool. If you hit O for Object, you do have to click on it, because if you click off of it, it might select nothing at all, or you can select the wrong layer. There's a lot of things you can do. So let me get back to the pen tool. And I want to put that there, and then I'm gonna add the border effect, which is down in the layer properties. And it would help if I got out of the way. So, oh no. Help if I got out of the way so you can see it. The layer effect tool's down here. Increase the thickness of the edge to 5. And that's the wrong layer. Turn that effect off. Hit the text layer. Now put the effect tool, and now you can see where it overlaps and it makes itself distinct over the sketch. So, gonna do that. Make sure I have it black. Nope, that feels like it's extending too far. Hold down E for the eraser tool. Full stop. Quotations. Lots of very quick Control Z's, which I think anyone who draws digitally, that's the one keyboard shortcut we all learn. Now if we could just learn every other keyboard shortcut. Don't you want your life to be easier? Alright, so text is done. I'm going to make that layer green so that I stop touching it. To make it even more organized, we can make a folder. I'm going to rename the folder, Control-Alt-X, into, I don't know, all caps, done. Boop. And then instead of normal, I'm going to put it to through, just in case I stick things in there and I still need whatever's happening in that layer to affect what's below it. So save, and save often. Control-S should be the second keyboard shortcut that you use along with Control-Z. Control-S or Command-S if you're using an Apple product to save your work. Save and save often. Alright, cool. So we don't need this layer anymore, so I'm going to make that purple. No! Wrong layer. Purple, right? So that is, I'm just going to stick it in the folder that says used. I'm going to make that purple, stick it in there, and I'm going to close that folder so that I stop messing with it. Going to close the done folder so I stop messing with that. And then I can focus on the sketch layer. I'm going to turn to yellow as my reference. I have such a habit of just clicking that little button because it's so close to the opacity instead of hitting Control-B, but I should try using Control-B more often. So lower the opacity, and then Control-Shift-N is something I do to make a new raster layer. I don't know, I can't remember if it's a clip default, but if it isn't, you should set a keyboard shortcut to create a new layer. It'll make life faster. And this will be lines. So this drawing, let's use... So for my line work, I normally use a Bit Husky, which is an India ink brush tool, but we're going to use the G pen. So a good quick way to get up and down your subtools, you see how it's moving? Oh no. Is the arrow keys, or the comma and period keys on your keyboard can help you go up and down your subtools over here. So I do that as well to quickly move between tools that are right next to each other. So we're going to use the G pen on this lines. I'm going to see how thick the brush. Alright, down one bracket. This is fine, right? And then this little middle line here, I'm not going to put on my lines layer because just in case if I want to move that around, we're going to create another layer, going to call it border, and we're going to, with our G pen, tap here, hold shift, tap the other side, there is our line. Going to make that green so that we don't touch it. Even better, I'm going to lock this layer so I can't accidentally draw on it. Like, something will go wrong, it won't show up if I try to draw on the layer. Which, now that I think about it, is a great way to keep yourself from drawing on other layers. Just lock it. See this little thing? It says lock transparent pixels. You can no longer draw on top of it. That's smart. Alternatively, I wouldn't use the lock layer on, like, layers that you want to keep making edits on. But it is certainly a method to keep yourself from drawing on the wrong layer, which is a constant source of trouble. Let's see, I don't have any reference art for Anand, so I'm kind of designing him in this drawing, but I have made a sketch for Venkata, so I'm going to use the art I made of him before to serve as a sort of reference to further develop his face. I don't need this, so execute myself over here. Let's see. The question mark or slash, I keep bound to zoom, and I think I set my zoom thing to drag specified by rectangle in the tool properties, which then lets me zoom according to like specific spots, and then I can adjust from there. Another quick shortcut. Right? Takes like 5 minutes to set some stuff up, and then when you've kind of got your workspace the way that you want it in Clip, to prevent things from going horrifically wrong in the future, you can hit Window, Workspace, Register Workspace, and it will save everything you've sort of like set up here. Would be a good idea to register your workspace and like delete older workspaces as you make changes to your setup. That way, you know, something wonky goes on with your computer. You can, you know, reset your workspace, reload it, change it. You can change it according to the type of project you're doing. All really useful things. Like, there are a ton of tools in Clip that just take a really long time to learn. I've been using this since 2018, 2019, and that's what, 6 years? I'm still learning things about Clip. I also have like the latest version. I think I have version 3, Clip Studio Paint EX. And I just bought it. I don't have like the subscription. So another thing I'm going to try to be more mindful of is making less sketchy lines where I kind of like, you know, where you like draw over the line and you try to like hold it in place and then you shape it and all of that fun stuff. Gonna try to not do that as much. I'm most guilty of it when I do eyes, but this is all part of my campaign to go slower, and by going slower, my goal is to get it right on the first try, you know? Get it right on the first line. This feels very small to work in. I'm gonna... So this is 100%. I'm gonna go down to 80. There we go. So I have such a bad habit of doing that sort of sketch thing that, well, alright, I'm not gonna say it's a bad habit. I'm gonna say it's something that, like, you know, we all kind of do. And learning how to trust your line work and trust your lines is an ongoing process. It's also easy to fall into a loop of constantly redoing your lines. And that's also part of the process. Another thing I want to do that will make filling in flats easier is closing spaces. Now I feel like sometimes like my pressure makes this line too thick, so we're gonna click down to there. And when I press down fully, it only gets to be that thick. And then he's got big eyebrows, so at this angle, the eyebrow's gonna connect. So this is a stylistic thing, but I like the eyebrows to be at least a little bit messy, because they're made out of hair. There we go. Yeah, at this angle, it kind of like swoops into the nose shape. I always do this. This eye always ends up really close. There we go. I always draw the eyes really close together. Then there's the through line for the eyebrow. It's a general shape. Here's another shortcut that I use. I have a tool that I downloaded from the asset store. If I hold down F, it's all my fill tools. And this is the fill and close gap tool, and it references, I have it set up to refer to multiple, so anything that has the little lighthouse on it, which is this tool right here, you can select multiple layers and you can set as reference layer. Really useful. But if you're already on the same sort of layer as your lines, you can hold down F to quickly use this tool. And it lets me select this and it'll fill it in. I let it go, goes back to the pen, and I can just finish the little embellishments on the side. Another good reason to have a smaller window on the side is so you can see what it looks like when it's small. Like if someone's just looking at it on a phone screen, whereas you zoom in, you see all of the little like mistakes and stuff that you made, but you zoom out and, you know, all those mistakes sort of disappear. Always good to be constantly reminded of that. That way you don't get tunnel vision. And so I don't know how much of his hair is going to cover his ear, so we're not going to draw his ear yet, but we will draw the lips. So you have this point here. I forget what it's called. I want to say it's the philtrum, but I feel like that might be wrong. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Sorry, I saw a notification and I got distracted. Alright, back to work. At least I have myself on Do Not Disturb on Discord, so it minimizes the distractions that I have. You know what? That'll do. We pick our battles. There's no need to... Hold on. There's Anand's hair parting is over that eye. This is over here. want to mirror them. Let's see. Make it small. Now, I live dangerously and I draw everything on the same layer. You do not have to do this. If you have stuff that overlaps, make them on different layers. It'll save a lot of trouble. I just live dangerously. Probably because, like, I started off doing traditional art a lot, sketchbook and stuff, and all of that happens on one layer. So if you're inking something, yeah, you better get it right. Otherwise, basically screwed. Alright. This is where drawing from the shoulder comes in handy. So, something I taught myself to do early on to try to meet the ends of really long hair strands is when you draw, right, so let's say you get to here, right, instead of trying to come from down and overlap and you end up with like that little split end, practice doing an upstroke, and that way you'll have nice complete hair ends that you don't have to worry about later. Now again, I live dangerously and I work entirely on a single layer, which can lead to overlap if I'm not careful. Gotta be careful. Let's see. Have that. Oop. 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 That looks better. It helps to think about hair in chunks, or like locks of hair. Nope. Yep. We're not going to add a lot of detail into his hair because I'm going to use the same texture to fill it in because we're not coloring this today. Ads are starting soon on Twitch again. Why do I feel like I've missed an ad set? I feel like that's a thing that has happened. Nope. Nope. Alright. That would have. Oh. Okay. Almost done. Collar. Neck. Collar. So this is going to have like a border and a brocade pattern. And I have brushes for that. Hold on, no, that's not how the color would fall. Let's try that again. So, Adam's apple, center point. This is a stiff collar. Comes around. There's the neck. You can see the inside of the collar, this side. And it folds out, down, makes the lines, and then this meets in the center. Not going to see the inside of this side, if the outside of it is facing us. There's the border. Alright, and then we're down. Hooray! Oh. Oh. Seam. Shoulder. Shoulder. Nope. Right here. Sleeve. Shoulder. Seam. Bit of a fold. There we go. So if you hold down R, you can rotate, and if you hold down Shift R, you can do it at 45 and 90 degree angles. Helps you reset your canvas pretty well. This is fine. Yeah. And we've got ads. Shoulder hurts. We've been drawing a lot this week. 40 seconds left for Twitch side ads to finish. Good time to drink water. "20 seconds. Maybe we can finish this tomorrow. Ad break is ended. Maybe we can finish this tomorrow. 'Tis taking a while to draw this, and I'm like this I'm doing for fun, for social media, but Control W can close your files without closing out of the entire application. Control O to open stuff. So if I go into my art, I have so much stuff. Draw. Where is... So My Gentle Giant. Final chapters. 14. All of my files are in like this one area. This. I don't normally share all of these windows, so this is very new. Just gotta wait for it to open, because it is 63 pages long at the moment. The pages are small, so there's fewer panels per page, and this chapter is a lot. This chapter has a lot going on in it. So, My Gentle Giant is not my comic, but I am helping finish it for the author's family, that the author passed away, and the previous artist, who was a close friend of theirs, couldn't continue working on it after a while, understandably. So I'm working with like a friend of the family to finish this comic. So here I have finished the storyboards, and sometimes I need a sketch to kind of like make life easier when I do the line work. So I think we are going to do sketches, but first, before we do any of the sketches, we are going to get backgrounds. And to do that, I have to open SketchUp, which unfortunately I have to keep a subscription to, because all of the backgrounds, the 3D backgrounds that I use, that I buy off of Acon 3D, they're all SketchUp models, and so SketchUp kind of has a monopoly on really good background resources. And that's like, there's no other like, I mean, there's Blender, but it doesn't, like, people don't make stuff for Blender, if that makes sense. It's kind of like how Photoshop is just like the industry standard based on like history and shit, and it's like, there's no way around it. Anyway, we are gonna... I'm not going to teach anyone how to use SketchUp because I still barely know how to use it. And okay, so I'm starting off with this last panel. I need a shot from the back. Actually, no, I don't. It's a chibi panel. Chibi panels don't need 3D backgrounds. I just need a shot that deals with this angle, looking down at the corner of the bench. Help if I look at it. Let's do that. Open this. Scoot it over here. That'll do. File. Export. 2D graphic. I'm gonna stick it into my Gentle Giant. Where it will be background 41. I hang on to every screenshot of the backgrounds that I export just in case. And then I only delete files when like a project is done and I know I don't need those references anymore. Because too many times I've been working on a project and wished that I had saved like the thing that I used. So you notice right here, everything is pretty much named. This is the layer that comes with the file. But I have folders and layers to organize my entire, like, everything that needs to happen to make the pages that I make is already pre-made. I have a template that I made of layers that I actually need to save as a template, because when you make a new file, right, you can use a template here. And you can go into created material, and there's layer templates that you can use. There are some preset templates that Clip comes with for like frames and stuff. I don't use them because I would rather create my frames myself. but that's another shortcut. So if you're like making a comic and you realize you're using the same layers over and over again, if you just make a template for yourself and you save it by using edit, register material, template, click that, it's going to open up this material properties box. You name your material name, and let's see, don't click that. But you need a save location in your materials, right? So it'd be like manga materials framing template. If you save that, it's going to save everything that you've got on your layers. And then when you make a new thing and you use this as a template, that's going to pop up. So obviously we're not going to save this because I've already started drawing on it. But that's something I actually have to do with my template file because I keep opening the template file and then copying over the layers. Yeah, Anyway, Control V will paste by the corner. Control Shift V will paste in the center. And so this thing is gigantic. So Control T, I'm gonna resize it and fit it onto the panel. So he's sitting here. Just gonna eyeball how big the bench ought to be. A little bigger. And it doesn't have to fit the storyboard perfectly. Click OK, hit M. Make sure that, right, so M, the comma keystroke to go up to rectangle without having to click it. Control X, Control V, Control D to deselect. Get rid of that layer. Ta-da! Ideally, I should put a mask on that in case I want to move it around, but the YOLO. Control F is what I set to duplicate a layer. Control Alt Shift A I have set to the artistic layer filter, and I have it to lines only. This is how I extract the line work from the 3D background. And the reason we do that, right, is so that I can take this layer, right click, convert layer to vector, hit O for the object layer, make sure the vector layer is selected. You can change the brush size of the layer, you can change the thickness of the lines, and you can change the brush shape, which I want it on the triangle brush or pen. So pen is too sharp. So I have this brush that this pencil look like. Nope. Line art pencil look like. That would be pretty if I was using line art pencil for line work. I think I'd save it to triangle brush, which is, oh, that's a really old brush that I think I borrowed from a friend of mine. But basically, you can change the brush shape. You can also, wonder how I did this before, but the brush tip, what's the brush tip material? Stroke. I'll have to look this up, but there's a way to add to that list of brush shapes. This list, specifically. I'd have to Google it. I'll have to search how to do that. But you can add brushes that you use into your brush shapes, which you can then use for vector layer lines, so that your background looks more integrated with your art. Anyway, we're going to, I was going to say lowercase that, but lower the opacity so the background's out of my way. Turn that yellow because we're using it. Control B. Lower the opacity on these guys too. Sketch. Get my design pencil. Save the page. Oh, my sweet, not muted. Yes, hi Bird Beth. We're back. We're back and we're doing stuff. What else? Right, so I have preset a bunch of balloons, and I've made folders for the specific balloons per comic that I use, because what I use for My Gentle Giant is very different from what I use for partners, because they're effectively different demographic genres. So we're gonna grab these and we're gonna plop them onto the text layers. And you notice it sort of centers itself. Sometimes you have to edit it on your own. The object tool is great. You want to make sure that there's enough room on the sides here for the text. Oh no. Oh, also, if you hold down spacebar, it's the move tool. Useful. Learn your keyboard shortcuts. That's all I'm saying. It may be, if there is no other lesson you learn for learning to draw digitally, Control E merges the layer below it. Make sure you have the right layer that you want to merge with. If you merge two of these bubble vector layers, they will automatically connect. Fancy stuff. I try to keep each speech bubble, oops, I gotta be careful when using the object tool because it will select other vector layers that are, you know, of a higher hierarchy, because everything is tucked into. Also, if you use your spacebar, you can move your layers over here, so you don't actually have to use the scroll. Shift, select all the layers. Are they all tucked into this folder? No, they were not. So that's something I need to do, because it's going to make life easier in one specific, well, actually multiple specific ways, but yeah. I've already like pre-made my panels here. Control E. So sometimes I squish the text to see like the limit and then extend it out to make sure that has the right shape. Sometimes I do eyeball the centering. You basically have to give the words room to breathe on your panel. Now, because this gets reformatted to scroll, we're going to take this and also make it see-through. Didn't color the... Oh, because it's through. Normal. There we go. Flipping between through and normal on your frame can sometimes help if a certain effect isn't happening. So yeah, we're gonna make that also low opacity so we can work around it. Go to our sketch layer, close this because we're done using it. Window, canvas, new window. Control Shift Q, which is what I set it to. Dangerous keybind. Just to flip the layer over. And I think it's over here in layer, not layer, view. Yeah, view, rotate, flip. Flip horizontal is the thing that I used here, and I set it to a keybind of Control Shift Q so that I can flip it over and then be able to see mistakes. So I'm going to set that to print size. I'm going to leave it alone. Scoot that over there. Close this because I have my brush. I'm actually going to close these other pages so that clip doesn't slow down when it auto-saves. Oh no. Looked at this and I'm like, what did I make the water bottle look like? This is why reference images are always useful. That's what the water bottle looks like. That. I based it off of a water bottle my brother has. So these curves should line up. Let's see. Thumb pad, thumb, finger, finger, pinky. Chest, collar, ribs, bent over. There's the other arm, elbow, bone, wrist, those muscles. Arm. There. Trying to be nice and quick. With my sketch layer so that it is easy. Draw on. Let's turn this way. The characters are also younger, so usually teenagers don't have like, I don't know, I don't want to say underdeveloped, but it's not like fully matured features, and so they're usually softer, even like older teenagers. So I know which characters are which. Chibi makes life easier. Here. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Bench. Alright, so you notice how flipped over there's a skewing? Like this isn't centered. Oh, wait. Oh my gosh, okay. Cool, cool, cool. There. Chibis are supposed to be easy, but actually, like, getting the stylization on a chibi can sometimes be harder to make it look right. Like you still need to know anatomy to make a good chibi. Right, so save that. Right, we'll just go one page at a time. That was nice and quick. Don't want to spend too long on the sketch layer, because the line work is where the real work happens. Now, another thing to make life easier are references and assets. So for each chapter, I have character references, eye shapes, outfits, accessories, coloration, extra references for like shoes and shit. And I always have these open when I'm actually drawing the characters themselves. Because even if you've memorized how to make your character, you can still forget to draw something. I do it all the time. I have made hundreds and hundreds of pages, and I've drawn some of my characters hundreds of times, and I will still forget some detail on them. Like, one of my characters has a scar going across his face, his whole face, and there have been times I have forgotten to draw it. So, yeah, use references, including ones you make for yourself, and have them open and ready to use and look at, because that way you won't make mistakes. Mistakes cost time. Right? So if you're trying to get faster, there's two ways to do it. Either you move faster, or you cut down time on other tasks. Now, moving faster definitely can help, but it also increases the risk of making mistakes. And when you make mistakes, you usually have to go back and fix them. The time it takes to fix those mistakes, if it takes more time than just doing it right the first time, then you're not really going faster. But if you go at a pace that you think is slow, but you get it right the first time, then overall, you are going to finish things faster. And it feels very counterintuitive because humans are not good at long-term thinking, in spite of being the being on the planet that can comprehend time and planning and stuff. But we're not very good at realizing long-term effects of things. So in a lot of ways, like, we will focus on just like the immediate thing. Joint 1, joint 2. Nail. Fold, fold. There. Right? You draw slowly, and you only draw it once. Hold down R for rotate, Shift to snap it into place. shift while holding R will snap it into place. Like, my left hand is always on the keyboard, ready to hold down the space bar, move it around. So, like, slowing down and sharing all of these sort of fundamental things is something that, like, we sort of learn by doing as artists. That's what I mean by we. Like, anyone who uses programs like these, we learn by doing it, and we learn by, like, making ourselves, like, try to use better tools and stuff, and then eventually we always come upon something that we're like, oh, the ads is starting soon on Twitch. We come upon something that we think we should have been using all along, but we only just taught it to ourselves. And so what I want to do is do that part. Like, share the thing that you should be using that you wished you were using before, to hopefully save other people time. So, oh no. So that's my hatching habit. I immediately start hatching when I want to shade an area. But you don't have to do that if you're already going to shade on the shading layer later after you've colored it. Anyway, the ads are running on Twitch. I'm going to go to the bathroom. I will be right back. Alrighty, and I'm back. Hello. Let's take a peek. Bird Bath is probably still here. I don't know. Nothing is happening in chat. There's no one on YouTube. No pressure whatsoever to perform. None. Ah. But you know, on the off chance that someone actually, like, watches the VOD, I might as well try to be useful. Let's see. Thigh. Yeah, that looks like he's bending down. Right, so, helpful thing with pants is if you draw the seam first, put in the folds, other part of the seam. Something I've observed with pants is they kind of like, it'll tug from the seam, and you'll have a fold there, but because this is stylized, we can have a nice clean line instead. Inner seam. Alright, so thinner lines for the inner seams, thicker line for the outside. Alright, so like this part of the pant. And he's kind of got like pants that pool around the bottom, so they've got a lot more cloth. It's not very form-fitting, but this, it feels like his back leg is thinner than it should be. Yeah. Neat. Moving on. Boop, boop, boop. Nose. It's my stabilization mark. Do I want it to be more or less? Oh, more. So I changed my tablet. Another great thing about Clip Studio is this stabilization tool. So even if your hand is a bit shaky, and mine will be while I teach myself how to slow the heck down and make nice clean lines, stabilization can help make those lines smooth so they're not like uber wobbly. And there's nothing wrong with using the tool, right? To help you out. That's why they're there. They're tools. Tools are meant to be used. They will be sad if you don't use them. Do you want your tools to be sad? No, right? I hope not. Unless you delight in the misery of your tools and then prefer to suffer, but that's your business. I would rather make my life easier. Because the world already sucks, might as well. Maybe it's just me. I can't wallow in misery for too long. It feels physically unhealthy. Another good thing for comics is like exaggerating expressions is something I really want to do more. Especially My Gentle Giant, because it's like teenagers, you know? So it's less about drawing it accurately and more about drawing the feeling of it, right? My favorite example is Studio Ghibli tears. So anytime like someone like really starts crying in a Ghibli film, you see these like giant globs of tears falling down their face. Now, actual tears don't do that, right? If you were drawing them realistically. But the great thing about Ghibli is like tears feel like that. They feel like these huge things falling out of your eyes. Even if they don't they don't look like it, you know? And so that's a great example of capturing the feeling of a thing visually. And it makes it all the more impactful and striking. So I try to remind myself of that a lot. And another thing I do with eyes, like, because of the concave or convex nature of our eyes, the pupils kind of look like further inside of the eye, because that's where they are. And I've seen people draw, like, in like webtoons and stuff, the eye more like accurately, and it seems like recessed. I don't always do that. Early on, I have like tried to draw the eyes and then the pupils to always be looking in the same direction, if that makes sense, right? Like, it won't be anatomically correct, but the eyes will be looking where they're supposed to be looking. And that has always kind of worked for me. I can't tell you why or how, but that's just one of the things that I guess I do. Alright, next is hair, because we know where the face is, so start from the most prominent thing, followed by the other major parts of the structure. This gets tucked in, this covers it. Here's our face. There. The scene, his hair is down. And then by his ear, this comes down. Face, chin. Let's see. This swooshes up in front of the rest. And then there's another thing here that gets tucked and brought down. Thin line first to make sure I'm in the right direction. And then curls around here. Oops. It's too long. But there. Curl. Swoop. Curl. Swoop. Curl. Very carefully knead it. But there. Cool. More structure. Swoop it out one more side. Yeah, having the occasional lock of hair that kind of like goes the other way can I don't know, it adds something out of the pattern that makes it look more pleasing to the eye. I don't know why, but like imperfections in a pattern make it more interesting to look at because it draws your eye there. Whereas a uniform pattern, you'll kind of glaze over it, you know? Fine. And the goal is to make as close lines as possible, and they took off their headbands by this part of the story, so I don't have to draw them anymore, because I kept forgetting to draw them, and then I had to add them into my references. Which is why the line work or the headbands looks different. Ah! Okay. So there's the skull. The hair is on top of the skull. I'm just gonna shape it. Oh no. This is what I get for drawing everything on one layer. You see, every time I speed up, I start making mistakes. Every time I slow down, I get it right. Wild. Anyway, ear, some long strand there. Let's see his ear. So he's kind of got like this layered hair. So neck, collar is close to the base of his neck. And the collar is a different color, so we want to make sure that line is closed. Oh, there's the seam. There's the shoulder. The seam is a little bit off his shoulder, so it's down there. And then a bit of a fold for the... And then he's wearing this around his shoulder, so that's the strap. Ah, here we go. So my fill tool, my close and fill, requires the little lighthouse to set as reference layer. So we're going to take this whole folder for line work, set it to the lighthouse, and if these layers are inside of my frame layers, it will use the frame as borders as well, which then I can surround this and it'll fill it in. Yeah. Remember, if you ever want to quick use a tool, all you have to do is hold down that keyboard that activates that tool. You can use it, and then once you let it go, it'll flip back to what you were using before. Oh no. Oh, cool, that looks nice. Oh. Oh, oh. Back of his head. Parting happens here. Because it's a chibi, I don't have to worry too much. I can just the general shape. I'm going to drag down from the ruler for a quick... The problem is, yeah, the guide always creates a new layer, so instead... Just going to make our brush thinner. And eyeball it. Sometimes you take risky shortcuts. Sometimes they pay off. Sometimes they don't. Yep, that's fine. Shoulder. Seam. Shoulder. Seam. Finger. Knuckle. Knuckle. Thumb. Base of the hand. That. Oh. Let me see what looks like flipped over. Okay, that's fine. Perfect. Oh. Oh. Well. Alright, so that character's done. Parting is on that side. Oops. Oh, there we go. Because it's a chibi, we can exaggerate earrings and the ear. Simplify the ear. Simplify the silhouette of the hair. One of my biggest issues is always adding too much detail to chibis. Drawing something simpler is often harder to do, because stylization takes a lot of practice. And stylizing humans, especially, takes being able to draw them realistically. Like, there's a foundation of knowledge that you just sort of like absorb, and then you keep getting better at it. Like, I finished college in 2016, and that's where like all my formal education finished. And I did have like anatomy classes and stuff, but yeah, other than a jawline, I'll just, I don't like how that looks. Don't like how that looks either. I may just have to shade that. I'll leave it to shading. Sometimes to make shadows easier, I use drop shadows that are in black. That way shading for the comic doesn't become like a whole strenuous effort. It's also a good way to lead the eye around. Adds depth. I also like coloring things in by hand. Alright, so now that we're done drawing, I don't need this to be flipped over anymore. I don't need these references. What time is it? It's 2 p.m. Alright, we will probably finish this one page, and it's going to take the next 2 hours. Do I need this? No. Alright, so you see the amount of like rendering here. And we're going to use up all of these layers, which are currently green, that are behind my head. There's no place to really put me that isn't in the way. How about this? I'll sit here. I'll sit down here. We'll figure this out. And honestly, it's better that I'm figuring this out while no one's watching. No pressure, no responsibilities, no obligation to be good at what I'm doing. It's incredibly freeing. Alright, we're gonna Control B, bring this back, put up the opacity. Background layers. Alright, another thing. Color sets. Color sets are great. If you keep drawing the same things over and over again, make a color set. Make a color set. It will make your life easier. Look at this. All of my flats, all of the hues that I use for shading and lighting, and anything that I use over and over again, I have preset the colors. I've made little spaces so that everything feels organized. I have them organized by character. Character objects, general flats that are shared across characters like tongue and mouth. If you're making a comic and you want your colors to be consistent, do this. You can always create like a canvas, or you can use the sub tool, the sub view here, and if you set it to, if you click like this little thing down here, the switch to eyedropper automatically, and you can like choose colors off of the sub view. This is also a place where you can like make a file with all your colors. I personally don't use the sub view much at all. I prefer grabbing my colors from here or creating it off of the color slider. That's another thing, I don't use the color picker because I like having more control over the hue, the saturation, and the value of the colors, and it makes for just, you can like put in numbers and you can adjust it a % at a time. It's much more fine-tuned. It does take a little bit of practice to get used to like choose your color first, then choose its saturation, then its value, and then tweaking those around without having to go up and down and around your color picker trying to find the right color. You can kind of change one variable at a time. It's just useful. So let's do our background flats first. We do have line work, still has the little lighthouse on it, the set reference layer, which will make filling in the backgrounds easier. I don't have like a background flat color saved. I really should. So that's what we're gonna do now. If you hold down Control Shift and tap, it will select the highest layer that you just tapped on. So I can use that to get rid of like my lighting layers and whatnot, and the stuff that I have on top of all of this, so that I can then, on your pen, if there are buttons, usually the bottom button here is like a right click or alt. You can just do that, and I think, yeah, if you right click on your mouse, it turns into an eyedropper tool, or you can hold down Alt and left click, and it's also an eyedropper tool. So if you have right click set on your button here, you can right click, grab that color. The only time that right click does not work is when you're in the marquee tool, because the Alt does something different. The Alt is a subtract from selection modifier. So if your marquee tool is chosen, or if the move layer is chosen, or at least this is the way I've set it up, because I think I made a mistake with my keybind when I set up my tablet. I actually need to change that, but this also does Alt. And if you have the move layer tool and you hit Alt and you move something, it will duplicate that layer. That's what it'll do. Yeah. I should change that. Anyway, back to the brush. Oh god, the ad is starting again. Why is time moving so fast? What was I doing? Ah, yes. Right click. Add color. Let me grab this. Add color. So I think... Okay, no, I didn't want to do that. Let me grab that, Alt, put it in. Alright, anyway. There are certain idiosyncrasies with my pen that I probably caused. Background. Name that. BGs for backgrounds. Oops, I saved it. No. I've made the mistake of like saving final files with like layers turned off. It's always a mistake. Alright, I grabbed that color, that's all I need. I kind of based it off of the background that I've already got. Grab my close and fill tool. Or, and I set this to the keybind U, you can use the subtool for figures, and in that you see lasso fill. I duplicated that and I made one that has anti-aliasing, and the regular lasso fill has no anti-aliasing. This is so it's soft and you can actually just fill things in. It'll basically, everywhere that you kind of like, you use it like a marquee lasso tool, and it'll fill in the colors for you. Grab the bench. I'll just make a new layer. But the close and fill tool is really useful because then you don't have to worry about staying within the lines as much. It has its limitations, but otherwise it's pretty good. And you notice that I have flattened all those layers because I am no longer going to be touching the flats layer. That's done. Instead, the background gradients, we're going to use the rectangle marquee tool. And this is where my workflow has to get a little bit more precise. Let's see. So usually when there's warm lighting, shadows get cooler, but it doesn't turn like immediately blue, right? I hit G to get to my gradients, hold down Shift to have a nice smooth gradient. You can move, what I do to like choose colors to slide to is whichever gets me to like cooler colors faster. Which honestly is, yeah, closer to green. So it's kind of like green shifted. Shift. Oh no, that didn't want to do that. G, Shift, up. Do a nice clean straight gradient. Control D to deselect. Sometimes you'll select things and you forget to deselect them and you'll be like, why can't I draw anywhere else? It's because you've locked yourself into a certain set of pixels. Yeah, a little bit of gradient. Green, that's done. Now, shadows. I have warm shadows, I have cool shadows. We're gonna do warm shadows because it's currently daytime for the characters. Again, just gonna use a basic gradient. There's not really a lot of drop shadows I have to do here. So it warms up the scene, and then warm key light. Gonna be on the light layer, which is on an add layer style here. Add. And I choose a... Oh, I started speaking over the ads for Twitch. I apologize to Twitch. Serpamon. TM. Hello. Hi. What time is it? Oh good, I didn't catch your chat like 5 minutes after you posted. What was I doing? Lighting. That's the wrong tool. I held down M. I have gradient selected. Gradient down. So when you're on an add layer, if it's normal, you notice it's a very dark color. But the darker color, when it interacts with the layers beneath it on an add style, will lighten the scene. And that's something I've had to learn through trial and error, basically, and then other artists' friends who had already figured it out. So this is a good way to sort of set up the base of my background colors, right? So I've got the vibe down. So backgrounds, done. Now, we are going to get the base flats first, and then we're going to work on layers that are clipped to those base flats. So line work has the little lighthouse on it set to a reference layer. I have my close and fill tool, and we are going to wrap around to where the lines are. So you notice it's using my lines as a reference layer, and I'm trying to fill in the areas without these gaps, because if I just like selected all of this, it's also going to fill in that gap there, and I don't want that. So we'll do it in parts so that we save time by going slower. It takes a little bit more finagling, but as is the theme for this year, go slow to finish your work faster. Right? So like taking 2 seconds more to sort of like do something right means that I don't have to spend time with an eraser, right? Like I do here, which is inevitable. There's always going to be a little bit of fine-tuning that needs to be done. Hit F for my fill tool. Yeah, see? Nice and clean. I really love this tool. It is free to download on the Clip Studio assets page. What is your comic about? Where are you publishing it? So this comic that we're working on is called My Gentle Giant. It's not my comic. I'm just the head artist for it to help finish it. My Gentle Giant is on Webtoon. It also has its own Patreon via Lovaboy Comics. And if you like, I can give you a link to My Gentle Giant on Webtoon. Yeah, so this comic is a teenage BL rom-com. It's a teenage boys love rom-com. Following, these are actually 2 of the side characters. But it basically just is like a slice of life, cute romance drama involving sort of coming of age teenagers. Very cute, very lighthearted, very sweet at moments. And it follows the main character Jun, who is super short and like effeminate looking, but he wants to be, you know, more manly and not be treated like a girl, basically. And just trying to like get around that while also being gay. Yeah, it's very cute. So, right, base flats done. Next, we're going to make a ton of layers because that is the easiest and fastest way to deal with this. The water bottle was like a gray color, not as important. So, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start off. A thing with this tool, right, is if you're on the same layer and if you change the color and you try to fill in like an adjacent area, right, so let's say I want to do these fingers, if I try to do it on the same layer, it's also going to affect what I've already filled in, which is why we're going to be using a lot more layers. But for right now, what I do is I try to fill in as many areas that are unconnected as possible. So now is this guy, and I have all of his colors pre-made and ready to fill in, and I'm just going to fill in all the areas that are not connected to make my life easier. Now skin, so grab this, make sure I get everything. Right, can't do his skin here. Now it's all touching different areas, and oh look, I made a mistake, right? So there's that. Now, go below that, create a new layer. Fun fact, if you create a new layer in a string of layers that are already clipped to like a master layer below it, which I think, what is it, Control-Alt-G? Yes. So, I don't know if that's default to clip or something I keybinded myself, but that can clip and unclip a layer to the base one. Anyway, we want to make a layer underneath this one to then make life easier, and you won't overlap with the layers above it. Hold down E for eraser. It's a little blue part there. What's going on? Oh, is it because... Sorry, that was bothering me. It'll get covered up by the bubble, but still. Gotta make sure I'm on the right layer. So, did that. Where's his pants? Pants. And shirt. Okay. One more layer. Grab the pants. Finish those. Dope. Now we can, oops. Somehow managed to speed through even when I'm trying to slow down. Alright, so let's continue the flats. Let's go to the top of those that we started and keep doing what we were doing before. Where is, there we go. Eyes. Probably do most of his hair. Hold on. Oh, yes. Oh no, the ear. And then depending on how big, like, the close gap is, will also affect how much, like, how many narrow areas it also starts to fill in. Okay, cool. That spot there. Yeah. And the reason we're using such a bright, like, red as my base, like an eye-bleeding red, is so that I don't miss any spots. Nope, that's the eraser tool. I want a pen tool. Going that little bit. Is so that I don't miss any, like, spots, basically. So that's the tongue. And the inside of the mouth, a little darker. Trim, which is his collar area. The lower shirt. Side. Skin. Oops. Be more mindful. And then the eyes, I will do on the same layer as the skin. You notice there's a bit of red there. I hit U for my lasso fill, and I will make sure I choose the skin color. Right click, hold down U for lasso fill. There we go. That way, this is at 100% zoom. There's no more red, which means I have done my flats properly. And we move on. That's completely disconnected, so I don't have to worry about that. Hair. Skin. I notice I've made a mistake here. So Control Shift and then tapping on the layer that you want to get to will automatically flip over to that layer. Very useful keyboard modifier. So it's really on this stage that I kind of play fast and loose with my whole name all your layers thing, because all of these flats are going to get flattened onto the same layer. Because the way I shade, I don't need them on separate layers. Detail. Skin on the layer below it. Shirt. There's a detail on the shirt I forgot. Let's go back to line work. There. This comes over here. Let's come back here. There we go. And we're back on track. Nope. Mouth. And then skin. Haha. And here. Clean that up. And these, so there's all these like little parts. Inevitable. That sometimes you have to clean up for your flats. And Control Shift, click on this to get to the skin layer. Grab white for the eyes. And we do that manually. Control 0 to zoom all the way out so we can see everything here. Control E will just merge all those layers down. Make it green so we know it's done. Close that so we know it's done. And now flush. So the flush or the blush layer is something I use to just give the skin a bit more warmth, right? And I use the soft airbrush. And mostly it goes to like tip of the ear, corners of the eyes, at the top of the cheeks, bit of the nose. Very, very light, you know? You don't want it to be like super obvious unless the character's like blushing. But it's just to give a little bit of warmth to the skin, and it's okay if it overlaps a little bit. Hold on, I see some red. Ooh, it's all flattened. This is what I get for living dangerously. Grab the skin. Fix that real quick. See, this is why I'm trying to teach myself to slow down. Alright, so if you turn a layer on and off, you can get a quick check of like what effects you've made. Even if they're really slight, you can see the difference. So that's done. Nice and light. The idea is to go not quick, but efficiently. You know, I've been doing this method for a very long time. So, you know, whenever I want a marquee tool, all I'll do is hold down M and then, you know, make sure that I have the rectangle chosen. Because I do everything on the same layer, which means hit G for gradients. Nope, don't hold down M. Stay on this. Been doing this for so long that, or like, rather, I've done this process so many times that I don't really think about it anymore while I do it. Right? You do something hundreds and hundreds of times. You do it over and over again. Hit M for the marquee tool. If you hit the period keystroke or the little arrow, you can go up and down your subtools. So now I'm on lasso, and this is where I do like my detailed shading, right? So if the light is coming from on top, this area is blocking the shadow, and we're not going to be very uber accurate with our shadows all the time. Sometimes shading for a comic is just there to help you further emphasize like a key object, you know? So like like the water bottle, for instance. Right? And then maybe I'll do like this part, the section under the humerus here. That's the corner of the humerus, and the ulna is the end of your elbow. Right? And then maybe like under the seam here. So what I do first is grab the gradient tool. This warm shadow, which is lighter, I'm going to use up here the fill tool, which automatically fills in the marqueed area. And I noticed I forgot. Oh no. And G. So fill in that marqueed area. Now it's solid. And then now dark. Grab the airbrush to make certain areas darker than others. To add depth. Control D, deselect all of that. J for your blending tools. And then there's blur and blend. Blend is what I use to, you know, blend things out for areas that need to be like smoother, that aren't like distinct drop shadows, for instance. All of this is very smooth, so there we go. There's all the shading for that. Next panel. This one's going to be more of a mix of the types of shadows. That's 150. All right, 100%. Okay. So for comics, you know, there's the motto of pick your battles, which means not everything needs to be perfectly shaded or highlighted. Because if you're making any kind of long-form comic or story, you're going to have to find a method that's sustainable, but also makes you feel good about the end result, right? And what you have time to do if you have deadlines, for instance, and you don't have any assistants. So the lasso tool becomes really useful. Drop shadows, part of the nose that's blocking out light, shadow from the top eyelid, right? Shadow from just underneath this section here of your brow, right? Anything that has an object that will block your light source is the kind of shadows I'm making, right? Not perfectly accurate, but they don't have to be. It's a comic. In fact, I'm about to do something very inaccurate for the sake of focusing on his face. So all the things that are past his front bangs here are going to be in shadow. Right? So I think I've gotten all the places that I wanted to. Click the warm shadow, fill it up. Dark shadow, airbrush, which you can get to by hitting S. At least that's what I've keybinded mine to. I have forgot how much I've changed in Clip, but like the areas that I want to have like darker shadows, I'll fill in just with the airbrush. If I want to lighten it, I'll go back to the warm shadow. So that like the face is nice and warm, and the things that are out of focus or like that you want less focus on, you make darker. Control D. So now we have really crisp shadows. And there are certain areas that I would want to blend, you know, like the nose, the corners of the eyes. Oh, I forgot to shade inside the mouth, but it looks. I was gonna say it looks fine, but then I'm like, hold on, wait, no, I actually want to do that. And then something I forgot to do during the flush stage is the lower lip, which is something I normally do. And so I have a smaller airbrush that I copied over. And I use the blush, use the right layer. Yeah, so the lips are something that is one of the battles that I've chosen to have to add a little extra layer. So blending will kind of remove the sharpness of these like drop shadows that I've made. So instead, actually hold on, I want to blend this part, but I'm going to use blur for these. That way it softens the shadows, but it still keeps the shape. And it makes it nice to look at when you're like going through at a glance. Fix that real quick. Alright, so learn to use all of your keyboard shortcuts. They will save your life. Right? A lot of this isn't about drawing fast, it's about drawing efficiently. And there is an upper limit on that. You can optimize everything and still work fairly slowly, and that's okay. Sometimes that's just the pace at which you need to draw, because that's the pace at which you need to think about how you're drawing the thing that you're drawing. Let's see, so Chibi requires even less detailed shading, so we're gonna make this super easy. We're gonna blend out a lot of this area. Hold down Alt to remove, subtract from marquee selection. Let's see, I moved a little fast there. I moved a little thoughtlessly. And that's what we're trying to unlearn. And by we, I mean me, I need to unlearn. Because I spent so much time trying to be as fast as humanly possible to get as much done faster, because I'm competing against those webtoons that have teams of people behind them, you know? But my art quality has suffered because I keep trying to compete with those teams of people, as opposed to just making the best art I can with what I've got. That's a lesson I keep learning. Yeah? You never stop learning. At least ideally. As an artist, as a professional, as a craftsman in any field. If you stop learning, you stop growing. And any craft field, you can't afford that. Especially in this world, you cannot afford to stop growing. So you cannot afford to stop learning. It's like your only pathway to opportunity. Alright, warm shadow, fill, airbrush, make sure we got the big airbrush. Dark shadows, make the airbrush even bigger with your bracket key stroke. And shade so it's darker on the bottom. Ta-da! Control D, deselect. Grab my blend tool. Make the blend tool a little smaller. And try to be purposeful about where I smudge the colors. This time I'm not going to miss the ad on Twitch. I'm going to actually take a break. My shoulder needs it. These parts we can blend. These parts we're going to blur for the drop shadow. Yeah. There we go. We don't want to like over blend it either, just a little bit. And our shading is done. I'm gonna make that layer green. I'm gonna go over to the highlights, back to our marquee rectangle tool. Select warm key, choose G for your gradient. And this is where I follow from where my light source is supposed to be. There we go. Then I'm going to grab my G pen again. So this warm high is warm highlights. And this is where we're gonna add our highlights. So, personal choice of mine, I like freehanding these. I think they're fun to do. I've seen webtoons where, like, you know, they just use a brush and they, if you slide it across, it'll create the hair highlights. Not my thing. But I like kind of do it myself. Add a bit of blur or maybe blend it. First time actually I'm using the blur in a long time, and I think that looks great. I like it. Ooh, blur that just a bit. Or that? No. That looks better sharp. Alright, make sure I have my right tool. This is the chibi panel, so either we can do sharp, highlight. Right? So either sharp or the bubble I call them Hetalia bubbles because Kimaruya uses like these bubbles. I like the bubbles better. Alright, we're gonna, because again, I'm doing this all in the same layer. Oh no, we're on ad break. Alright, ad break for Twitch and then we'll do the bubble highlights. Oh my goodness. My shoulder feels all crunchy. Like when I stretched it, I could hear it just crackle. We've been drawing a lot this week. There's so much to do. That's 2:45. We're working at a pretty good clip. Where's my water? 40 seconds left. Hmm. 20 seconds left. We'll consider it a good day if we finish this page. Like, that's good practice. Progress. Not practice. Clearly I'm getting tired. Alright. And we're back from ads. Now, right, we're doing the bubble highlights for the chibi panel. So bubble, bigger on the edges, smaller on the sides. The reason I had to undo and redo it is because I'm doing my dark and light highlights on the same layer like a maniac. After doing this for so long, I'm really like particular about my layers because I want to make my file size as small as humanly possible. And having 100 layers is not conducive to a small file size. Alright, I'm gonna grab white again, make sure we have our G pen, and now we're going to the layer called white lights. Not to be mistaken for the highlights, which is what I named, what's it, like the lighting layer? So the lighting layer is called highlights. The white lights are for these bits. It's the eye shine. Right? The things that are like pure white are the white lights. Right, so like these parts, and then if I go to my decoration tool, which I've set to V, I have Sparkle A, which I don't know what I did. I think I set this to pen pressure so that it would follow the pressure of my pen. And the particle size I set to, why is it on random? Pen pressure is better. Yeah, that gives me more control. There we go. Pen pressure's a little bit wonky. So I just want... There, that'll do it. So those are like the white lights. Those earrings. So line work is done, right? So green. Now, back to Control 0, get our whole page. I no longer need my side notes for helping the panels here. Last thing to do, so this noise and redshift layer is part of my original template. We don't use it on My Gentle Giant. It's like a texture that I put on like my own comic, but I don't think I use it in My Gentle Giant's workflow. No, I don't. Okay. Last thing, so I call this key light or a page lighting, and this is just to give a final effect above the line work. So it's on an add layer. I used my marquee rectangle tool, select one panel at a time, airbrush, and now I have a warm key light. I also have a warm fill light, but the fill light is a little bit cool because it's contrasting my key. Because a fill light helps highlight the shadowed areas, which then makes the scene easier to see. It's something that movies used to do really well. Oops, got in the way of my own rulers. It's something movies used to do really well before everything got like super grimdark and then you can't see anything at all. Which happens in like some action movies nowadays where you're just like, you don't know what's going on, the sound mixing is bad. You can't see nothing, and then you go back and you watch something like Lord of the Rings where like in the Two Towers film, the battle at, oh no, how could I forget the siege battle at the name of the place that I've forgotten that Rohan's people run away to? Can I even call myself a fan if I forget this? Anyway, that's really well lit, and the battle happens at night because Gandalf shows up in the morning. You know, look to the east. On the third day. Because he brought the other riders of Rohan back? Yeah, anyway. Fill light is this like nice little purple light that I use because it's cooler than red or the orange for like the sunlight. And it's basically to just lighten the whole scene, right? Because if you take away this final lighting layer, it is a bit darker, it's a little bit muddier. But this kind of like brightens things up, makes it easier to see on the phone. Also makes it better if you're gonna print, because printing will always sort of like downshift your digital shading and make it darker. Because effectively when you're working on digital stuff, you're working with light, whereas in physical stuff, you're kind of working with shadow, you know? If you add up all the colors on a digital thing, it'll become white, but if you add up all the colors in a traditional medium, it'll all go to black, or really like a muddy brown. But anyway. Alright, so just using those two colors, you add a little bit of brightness, you add a little bit of like a tonal shift for the colors. And then if you notice here on the side, if I click on this side and if I zoom in a little bit, and you just sort of like look at the general color palette across the pages, they're very consistent because I use this lighting schema. Even when the background changes, even when it gets a little bit darker, because the colors that I use for my lighting and shadows remain consistent throughout the comic, even if it's not like accurate to like the color of the lighting sometimes, or like realistic, it still looks nice, you know? I'm not the strongest with color theory or anything like that. I kind of color based on vibes. But yeah, as long as it looks good, you know? Let's see, lighting is done. So page lighting, done, that's green. Now let's come back here, Control B, bring our dialogue back to full opacity. Grab the object key. So now I don't have to worry about adjusting my bubbles because everything is drawn underneath it. And it may seem like a shame that we're covering it up, but I work on page format first because this specifically is going to get printed. It's also much easier to work on a page level with the method that I use with all my like layers being as consolidated as possible. If I'm like on a really long canvas and I'm constantly having to like navigate up and down, I find it very tedious to do. I find it extremely tedious. Let's see, I want more of that hand to be seen, so we're gonna scoot this over here. It's on the same layer. My text as well as dialogue bubble balloons are both off of the T keystroke, so I can flip between them because these are tools that I use in simultaneously or in succession. I have set up my balloon pen here because I prefer hand drawing the tails of the bubbles. And yeah, in order to get these smooth, something that I do, right, is, right, so Control Shift, click on the bubble that you want to get to because they're all separated in line, to prevent, you know, other people's bubbles from connecting. If you want to get like a really smooth like that, you know, you can practice hovering over it just to get your hand to do that curve, and then you only have to press it down once and you'll follow the line you've made. Again, I've made tails for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bubbles, which is why I can do it as quickly as I can. But if you're just starting off, you know, you go from the center of your bubble and you aim it towards where the mouth is. Now that's a little wobbly because I went slowly and I try to do it in one shot, but if I kind of like do the same path, right? And you only have to like hold it down, you know, press your pen down once, and you can get a pretty good a tail for your speech bubble using that method. Yeah. Oops. So my pen pressure, I haven't like calibrated it. I got a brand new drawing tablet because my old tablet I've used for 17 or 18. 19. I'm trying to remember when I got. So 19, that's 10, 11, 12. I've been using that tablet for 12 years. It was this big chonker Wacom tablet. Beautiful. Still works, but was starting to show its age. Concerningly, it would like lose connection with the PC and not display properly. It also wouldn't like to turn on and off like the actual machine with the tablet itself. Sometimes I would turn it off, and then when I try to turn it back on, it got a glitch connecting to its like connecting to my graphics card on my PC. It was deeply concerning, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have to invest in a new drawing tablet, and I got a Huion Canvas 20, I want to say it's 27 inches. It's bigger than my, like the screen is bigger than my old Wacom, but it's thinner and so much more high tech. Because again, I'd been using the same drawing tablet for 10 years, and I used it until it was like damn near ready to break before I replaced it. And a good thing too, because this was surprisingly affordable and significantly better than what I was using before. The pen pressures alone on this thing are like 8,000 something or other. And for 10 years I've been working at like 4,000 pen pressure, you know, like for this. And it's, I feel like after a certain point you don't notice that jump. But even so, just very, very impressive, right? And I wanted to make sure that I got a tablet where the pen didn't have batteries in it. Because I'm not buying batteries. I'm not doing it. So this, thankfully, the canvas doesn't have batteries for its pen. Did have to get used to, like, it's not as fat as the Wacom pen, I feel. Do I have my old Wacom pen here? I do. Well, it's about the same, actually. They're very similar. Oh, but I did have to get used to the fact that my Wacom pen had a pressure thing on the back so that I could flip it over and use it as an eraser. This doesn't have that. And for the first, like, 2 months or so that I finally started using the Huion, I tried to erase with the back of this pen, and that I kept learning the lesson over and over. Like, I flipped over trying to erase it, it didn't work. So that was me having to unlearn something that I've done for a very long time. Yeah. Using my keyboard more and having to hold down E to erase things, but yeah. Again, you grow or you die. Alright, what layer are we on? So we're on motion lines. And I've preset this to have a layer effect. So it's gonna have, everything I draw is gonna have a black border, which is why I choose white. And I choose my fave rounded SFX brush, which I renamed from something that I downloaded, and it basically gives me like this nice smooth thing. And I use it for movement lines, right? So, right there, and then, I mean, he turned his head that way. Actually, I stole this movement kind with, from a webtoon that I'm reading called The Mafia Nanny. It's really good. Anyway, the artist uses like a motion line like this, and every few months I feel like I change the way I draw the motion line because I steal it from different artists, and I'm like, ooh, this makes sense. And then my art style slowly shifts. It slides to something new at all times because I'm constantly changing the way I do things. Alright, now sound effects. Do I need any here? Maybe one. Right. Right there, yeah. Let's see. Bracket it down. There we go. There we go. Then I'm going to lock this layer, choose an airbrush by hitting S, make it a little smaller, and we're going to color the SFX so that it blends into and becomes part of the panel. Right? Basically, it becomes part of the art, you know? The composition of your page, you should plan with like the speech bubbles in mind, for instance. You should plan with sound effects in mind, which is why I try to put as much of like all of that stuff into the storyboard and sketch phase of the page. And now we see that, oops, what did I do? Okay. Whatever I did, I Control-Z'd it. All of these that are green are done. The purple is my understudy, right? It's my storyboard layer and sketch layer, which we don't need on. These guys we don't need on either, so we're gonna make those purple. And the page is done. Save. Save and save often, and then Control-Alt-Shift-S is what I've set up to batch export. And I use it specifically with these project files, which you can only do in Clip Studio Paint EX. You can't do it in Pro, where you can batch export to a folder, and it'll like name and number your panels. So let me get My Gentle Giant, Final Chapters, Chapter 14, select folder. So the name is MGG Chapter 14. It's going to do just page 56 because that's the page we're on. I'm gonna hit OK. Custom settings, I have my JPEG. My export is crop to crop marks, which is this inner mark, not the bleed. This outer line here is the bleed, which is like an excess margin that you use in printing if you have panels that go past the edge to make sure that everything is print and cut to the border of the page. So that's called the bleed, and then the inner line is your crop. That's where the actual size of the page is. So crop to crop mark, because this is just for Patreon, which my partner works on for this project. The person who's guiding the project and calling the shots. Yeah, so 1500 pixels is fairly large. It's very good, and it keeps people from, like, I don't know, printing it themselves, but like who steals and prints? You can read this comic for free eventually. Yeah. I saved the JPEG. That's done. Where are my reformats at? Because I reformat these pages for scroll every 10 panels, so that each episode feels consistently long at the same length. Where are we? We're at episode 14. What time is it? It is 3. Alright. Up to here. Oh, it's been a while since I've done reformatting. But like we're not posting to Webtoon in a hot minute, so I don't have to do reformatting today. Let me check my to-do list. Gotta update this stuff. Oh, there's things I need to upload to, like, Patreon for my other comic. Okay, but at least this one page is done. That's good. Alright, the other stuff I have to do largely has to do with uploading things to Patreon, which is part of the work. So I think I'm gonna call it here for the live stream. All the other work I have to do is administrative stuff, really. So yeah, I hope, you know, you got something out of this. And we will, I'm sure with practice I will get better at more seamlessly explaining what I do and how I do it, and show how to do it. And I feel like if I do that enough times, then, you know, eventually the people that do show up and find the stream we'll find something helpful. Yeah, I'm done for the day. Thank you for giving me company. I appreciate it. And I'm gonna be out of town for a bit, so yeah, still trying to find a good schedule for the stream again. Hopefully Monday. Monday at noon is when I'm gonna aim for the next stream. So everyone take care. Thank you. Bye bye.